Hey everybody, this is Doa, and I promised I would do some Shanks games on the channel as we do the dice roll here, and so here's one of them. I'm not the greatest Shanks player. it's a leader that I really wanted to learn coming into OP09. I thought it looked cool. I like the characters that are in the Shanks deck. You get to play a lot of big, powerful red stuff, but to be honest, after the games, after playing Shanks for multiple weeks, the deck is not for me. I'm not a great Shanks player. I try my best, but the at the end of the day, you gotta just move on, right? And I think I'm gonna move on from Shanks after these games, and maybe you'll see why as we watch through. But again, the purpose of this show from the beginning is to improve, right? If I just put up only games that I slaughtered my opponent and all that, that would be disingenuous, right? That wouldn't be true to how these nights really go for all of us out there, right? We have wins, we have losses, we have great plays, we have dumb mistakes, but going back and watching the games and learning from them, even if it's a deck I don't intend on playing again, I think is a useful thing. So we're going to watch at least this game. I'm not sure if I'm going to record all three or not, but I'm at least going to do this one for the channel, and I hope you enjoy it. I think it was a really entertaining game, actually, but I don't think it's the greatest outing for me, too. I don't think it's the greatest level of play I've ever had in One Piece. Going into it, I'll just make that disclaimer. But to start off, we've got our opponent here, who is a very dedicated Boa Hancock player. He's been playing this deck for a long time. He's very good at it. Going into this, the thing I generally try to remember is that there's similar play lines between this and Doflamingo. You've got the things like the Jinbei, all that kind of stuff. So you see a lot of the same good blue cards. This one just tends to go a little bit longer into the game. It's a little bit more tempo-y, a little bit higher end, right? But the one thing Bo is really good at is making sure you've got cards in hand to counter with, or else have something to play out the next turn. So Boa does excel at that. Now, I decided to drop the Sanji first. I know it's a 2K, and I do often use him a lot for countering, but I felt like I just honestly didn't have really anything else out on there, and then I needed to put some sort of pressure on early. So I played it. I was unsure about what to do with it. I don't really know exactly. Well, okay, so I do know kind of what Sanji is for, right? I know that he's there for that extra pressure sometimes if you need it, if you need to pull a card out of life to fill your hand up a little bit more. I did draw that Uta off my first life. I decided to just go ahead and take it. Not sure if that was like the greatest decision, especially if I have a Sanji out there and I want to take a life anyway. But that was the decision that was made. What can I say? And one thing I'm learning more than anything about One Piece, and just especially One Piece, is that there's a big difference between casting a game and playing a game, right? When you're casting a game, it's actually much easier, I find, to talk about ideal lines of play. And, that's obvious, right? Because you have the God view of the game, right? You know what's in each player's hand. You know what the board state is. You know what's in the decks. So it's very easy to talk about, okay, well, here's what the player's probably thinking. Here's what the ideal line of play is starting to look like, right? When you're playing a game, all sorts of different things happen, right? You second guess yourself. You have doubts about your play. You don't have complete information. So I find that I am much worse at figuring out lines of play with incomplete information, which sounds very obvious, but a lot of people are like, oh, well, you cast it. Why can't you play the game, well? And that's the reason, is that you're casting. You have perfect information, right? When you're playing, you have much less than perfect information. So I did a little bit of searching with Uta there. There's an 8K swing with Shanks just to use the leftover Dawn. I decided to not attack with the Sanji, which maybe I should have. But again, I think taking that early life instead of countering out of it, even though it did give me the Uta, was probably a mistake. I probably should have just attacked with Sanji and gotten the Uta that way, right? Ditched one of my other counters from hand. My general game plan with Shanks is pretty obvious, right? Where you're just trying to kind of maintain in the early game. Ooh, we got the ace card again. But just kind of maintain and then set up to play your big boys in the late game, right? So that's the general principle. This particular list is the one that won a Treasure Cup back in December. It's much more red-haired pirates focused, as you can probably guess from the Uta on the board there. I like it. It feels a little bit less bricky, but bricking is still a thing that feels like it happens with Shanks games. I kind of felt like I bricked in the two other games I played this time. This local, I bricked, I think, like I said, I felt like I bricked the games 2 and 3, and then I got a bye in game 4, and I was like, all right, well, I'm already 0-3. Oh, spoiler alert, I lose this game. But which, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's more about the process. How did we get there versus the end result? But then I ended up dropping after that because it was getting kind of late, and I'm like, I don't want to sit around for an hour and wait to play my maybe 5th match, because sometimes there is a 5th, sometimes there's not. So only 3 games that night. A little bit more. whoa. I became 11 years old for a second there. A little bit more filtering with the Kaya and the Sengoku there. The Kaya particularly on this turn. So what's my next turn going to look like, though? 4 health. Going to go up to, what, 6 Don. And Yasop looks like a good play there. And he's going to play the Jinbei, bring himself out another Law, and that's going to bounce the Sanji back to my hand, which I'm kind of fine with. At this point, I kind of would rather have the 2K in hand anyway, so thanks. Understandably, he wouldn't want to bounce the Uda just because that's something that could find me one of my big late game pieces at the right time, right? So going to 6, you can see this deck also runs the Searcher event as well, which I think is fine. I think you really want to find your red-haired pirates that you're looking for, your Ben Beckman specifically, your 10-cost Shanks, you know. If only it could search up things like Dragon or Rayleigh, that would be amazing, but no, you have to just kind of draw those. What's it going to be? So, this is 10-cost Shanks, which, in retrospect, I feel like is the easy choice here. Otherwise, I mean, a second Yasop to just have like multiple turns at 6K is not a bad thing either. Here's where I get caught by something that catches me a lot in card games, especially when I'm playing decks that I haven't played a ton of yet, and I've only played like a couple weeks of Shanks, is that I want to take the Lucky Roo here because I'm thinking in the most ideal scenario possible. I'm not thinking in reality. I'm thinking, well, I'll play the Lucky Roo, I'll block with him, and then I'll remove something on their board, you know, so I get that wonderful, double utility out of it, right? But in reality, I should be thinking, I'm playing against a blue deck. They have lots of ways to bounce stuff back to my hand or bottom deck it. This Lucky Roo is never going to get to do its thing, you know? But again, I make the very overly optimistic play here. Play the Lucky Roo, swing in for 6, and immediately get punished by a Jozu coming down, as you can see here. Bounces his Sengoku, bounces my Lucky Roo, and he's still free and clear to get 2 more attacks in here. Or 3 attacks, maybe. I can't remember if he attacked with the bow or not yet. I think he just forgot to ready it. It's a local. Yeah, so got a couple attacks coming in. And, yeah, I'll just do that. And, I just minus costed one of the 5Ks. And then I just countered out the second one. I used the Lucky Roo because I'm like, well, why not, right? And then my second Yasop will handle the other one. And he plays a 1-cost Trafalgar Law blocker there. All right, so going into my 8 Dawn turn, what have I got? I draw into a Newgate. Okay. So I'm staring at a pretty big board here. I'm like, I really need to remove the Jozu, but I also would really like to save the Ben Beckman, for a little bit later, since he's got a little bit more reach than the Newgate does, and I've got 2 Newgates in hand anyway. I can put some Dawn on my leader with Newgate, so I end up going towards the Newgate here. I'm thinking about it a lot, because I'm like, well, the Ben Beckman's also there. I have to rest in Newgate to get the removal. But, if he attacks into the Newgate, then that's another attack that doesn't go into me. And so that means that's more life that I get to save for the late game when my really important stuff comes down. So I Otama into Newgate here to remove the Jozu. And that feels decent, looking at this play again. Again, just because I kind of want to put the Newgate out there as bait. He's new bait, basically, because I'm like, hey, if you attack into this, you can remove this this powerful character from the board. Don't you want to do that, right? And not attack my life? So, I think that's a general idea here. And then I get to, again, save the Ben Beckman for a little bit later in the game. All right. But he does just remove the Jozu gets removed, and that's about it. Counters out of the attack, I believe it is, from Shanks. I think I probably swung at his Jinbei or his Law or something like that. Another low cost Dofi blocker. Getting to do a little bit of filtering there. And it is a little bit scary, right? Because he's got a good amount of attacks here. I can minus cost one of them, but I can't. That's a beautiful Dofi card, by the way. But I can't, get out of a lot of these attacks without dedicating a lot of cards from hand. I don't have any blockers again. I don't have like a ton of counter. I have some, but not like a ton, So I can already tell this one's going to go a little bit down to the wire here. And I haven't watched these games for like a week. I mean, I recorded them a week ago tomorrow as I record this now, but I haven't watched them since then, so I'm kind of trying to remember everything that happened in the game. I remember the ending for sure because the ending is wild, but I'm struggling to remember the other stuff. Okay, so yeah, I'll just minus cost that Law. He's going to swing in with the other Jinbei for 5. And at this point, I don't think I'm going to get a chance to play the Yasup, so I think that's what I counter with. No, I counter with the Sanji. Okay, so a little over counter there. I don't know if I like that. I don't like that too much. And he swings again. I just take that one, draw into another Ben Beckman. Great, removal is awesome. And he red rocks the Newgate. So he doesn't end up attacking into it, uses a card from hand to remove it. So didn't get what I wanted really out of that either. Up to 10 Dawn now. And what's next? 3 life, drawn to another 2K in the Lime Juice. And I've got 2 Ben Beckmans. This feels like a removal turn again. I could try the same thing again with Newgate, honestly. I could also go for some bigger attacks by playing the Yasup. I mean, 10 Dawn, I could do like a 7K Uta swing, play the Yasup, and then another 6K swing from Shanks. Have a 6K for the turn. Just stack into his board, make him use the blocker. Wonder what it is. But I do have 2 Ben Beckmans too. So part of it is I would like to establish some bigger stuff on the board as well. What's the play going to be, though? Looking at this hand again. Yeah, it's funny. Like, so we're going to go 8 into Law. I really want to remove it. And I remove a blocker. He's got 2 blockers, too. I might have forgotten that blocker was there. And then we're just going to trash the Jinbei with the Ben Beckman. And go. Okay, so I established the Ben Beckman. It's a 7K, but man, looking back on this, a 10 Dawn, I kind of like the 7K Uta swing and then the Yasup. That'd be, or is that a little bit too cute? I don't know. Let me know. Also, let me know in the comments if I'm too hard on myself too. And that's why, like, say whatever you want in the comments, because no one can ever be a bigger critic of me than me, But if you have anything nice to say, that's fine too. But again, the idea is to watch these games, talk through it, learn from it. Hopefully there's some insight you can gain for your own play from watching me self-analyze here too. Yeah, we're going to counter with the Yasup there. And he's going to Kaido to send that stuff back to my hand. All right. An 8 cost and a 3 cost, I think, is what it bounces. 8 costs or lower, 3 costs or lower with that 10 cost Kaido. Really nice Altard, by the way. He really does like to bling out his Boa deck. Like I said, devoted Boa Hancock player. And so I draw into a 10 cost Shanks. And where Kaido is 12, playing the Shanks is kind of nice here just because it reduces everything. I've got a lot of 2K in my hand too, so I'm thinking to myself, all right, if I play the Shanks here, I can probably keep it safe if he attacks into it, which might be a misconception on my part, but I felt like I could. So we'll just go 5K to the Law, right? Here? Yeah. Yep, just to make him use something. He doesn't want to use that, so he has to use something for it. Whereas if I attack life, he'd just take a life. And then Shanks into the Law. That draws out the blocker. Okay. And now it's a 4K and an 11K. So we're reducing the power of the Kaido a little bit. And suddenly all those 5Ks that Boa plays, it's, similar when you get to this position against a Dofi, right? When you start to get one or two of those OP09 Shanks out there that minuses 1K across the board for their characters, it starts to get a lot harder for those 5Ks that they've been playing to be effective. So that's why I kind of prioritize that this time. For better or for worse. Pudding. All right. I had 7 cards in hand, I think it is. And I honestly, I remember this now. Like, when he pudding me, I was like, oh, bummer. But then I was also like, well, it's not that bad, actually, because then, hopefully I can draw into my dragons, my Rayleighs, my other Shanks. So I kind of am happy with this because I didn't really have a very good late game hand, despite the fact that I kind of stacked some counter to try to keep the Shanks alive. So I'm a little bit worried about my Shanks here, but at the same time, I'm kind of hopeful that I can draw into a better late game hand. And the pudding as well does cost 4, so he only has 6 Dawn remaining. So that makes it much harder for him to do like 2 big swings into my Shanks to try to remove it. I think he's checking to see if that affects leaders. It does not. And so the thought process for him here is that I just puddinged. I'm going to go 16 into Shanks because it's 12 plus 5 Dawn is 17 minus 1K from the Shanks ability. So it's 16 coming in. I could minus it again from the leader Shanks ability. But either way, it's 16 coming in. I know there's another at least a couple 5K attacks coming in, maybe a 5K and a 6K. So I decide to counter 5K here. So go up to 17. I do not use the leader ability. Which he's asking about now. He's like, hey, don't you want to use the leader ability? I'm like, no, because I'm like, wait, do I? I'm like, no, I don't. My initial plan was to not do it because then when he attacks some other stuff, I can use it. But I think I'm also forgetting that the Trafalgar Law is already minus 1K anyway. But I can use it on the leader too. So he's attacking, and I think I say I minus it because I forget about the blanket ability from the Shanks unit. So the 4K swing that does nothing turns into the 3K swing that does nothing. Just mess up there, right? I'm remembering this now because yeah, he goes 6 in with that, and I just take it. And I could have maybe countered out. Yeah, I mean, my hand isn't really huge. I mean, I guess I've got 5Ks here, but yeah. And I think he's even like, hey, you should just use it like this. I mean, it's the thing is, I love playing at our locals because everybody is just trying to help everybody out. Like, nobody's really try-harding at these. Everyone's talking through all the turns. So I think he was like, oh, you could have done that. And I'm like, well, I took the life already. My mistake, live and learn, or lose and learn. But yeah, obviously I could have just ignored the law thing and then just minus the boa and countered out with maybe the lucky roof from hand or something. But hey, I've got another 10 cost Shanks now. So which I got off of the pudding. I didn't mention that earlier, but the pudding gave me another 10 cost Shanks, OP09 Shanks. So we're going to go 5 to the 4 for law. He's just going to let it go, which is great. I love to see that. His hand size is starting to get a little bit smaller now, which I'm starting to get a little bit of confidence, especially dropping another 10 cost Shanks. And everything is minus 2K. And so now I'm thinking I should really try to just kill this Kaido, right? It's going to either drain a lot of cards from hand, and I don't care about his life right now. He can be at 5 life all day, right? I just want to take cards out of his hand so that when I start swinging at life, I'm not just making it super easy for him to counter out of everything. So I do take out the 10 cost Kaido, which I'm pretty happy about. So now I've got two 12K Shanks on the board. All of his characters are minus 2K power. And I've got another 10 cost removal Shanks. That's a 10 cost that takes out something that's 10K power or less. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm feeling a little bit better here. He still has full life, but again, like, you go late game Shanks, I'm just going to have the board control, right? I can just chip away at him until he's dead. And maybe that's one of the mistakes I made going forward in this game, is that I didn't slow play the end of the game enough. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if there's something I could have done a little bit better here as we get to the later stages of this game. So that is a 2K pudding being given 6 Dawn. So it's a 6K swing total, which makes it a little bit more awkward, right? Because I can't just minus power it with my Shanks leader. Still have to commit at least some counter to it if I don't want to take that life. What do I do here? Could just 2K. Save the minus for something else. So I'm going to have to use a card from hand either way. I kind of want to save the Lucky Roo, even though there is bounce in the deck, you know. The smaller his hand gets, the less likely he is to have it. So I do 2K out of that swing. He's going to swing for 6 now. All right. I'm nervous about taking that one life. I kind of go back to that very, very first life I took that I decided to not counter out of. And I should have countered out of that because he would maybe have one less life right now. It's Mihawk. All right. I mean, whenever you lose a game, you always want to go as far back as possible and look at the first negative, impactful situations that happened and how those affected the rest of the game. Obviously, there's a lot more different decisions that could have been made and all that, but I do go back to that early decision to not counter out of that first hit and then use the Sanji to take my first life instead for a swing into him. Yeah, we're going to take out the Boa. Not a big threat, but still something that can attack, so we're going to remove it. Yeah, into life, and then into life. I think 2 life is a reasonable attack here. You know, I give him 2 cards, but, you know, I don't think that's the worst thing. And I actually play 2 Lucky Roos out from my hand. So I'm hoping, again, I know there's removal there. I remember losing the Lucky Roos earlier for that, but I'm just hoping that he doesn't have it this time around because we have reduced his hand size a little bit more. Against Boa specifically, that's a little bit tougher to do because they can just draw more cards, right, with the ability. And he happens to have Gravity Blade, so he bounces those back to my hand again, which, you know, is annoying because now he has 2 attacks coming through that I need to worry about. I am only at 1 life right now. He had to pay 7 for the Gravity Blade, so at least these aren't going to be the biggest attacks, right? And if he has to put all 3 Dawn on Mihawk just to get 2 attacks, right? Because that Mihawk is 3K right now. I guess he could do 2 and 1. Maybe that would have been better. That might have been more pressure. Because, yeah, 5 and a 7. Yeah, it wouldn't have been lethal because I could have taken the life and then countered out of the other one. But it's definitely still a scary scenario to rely on blockers like that and lose them. So do I counter out of this? I can minus it to 7. And that was a 2 and a 1, so I was at 8. So I do, looks like I did use my ability there. Yeah, back over to me. 10 Dawn as well. 3 life, I have 3 attacks, potentially 3 very big attacks. But I'm kind of like, all right, if I just remove the Mihawk here, then I just build another 12K on the board. I mean, Otama is an attacker as well. He's got 5 cards in hand, so I don't want to go all in with an Otama attack or something right now. Yeah, 2 and 2. And then I think I just leave it there, right? I don't think I attack with Shanks' turn. I don't think I should. No reason to give him 1 more card. But, I mean, maybe what's the difference, right? If I'm going to be playing the Shanks anyway and removing the body, why not just swing 5? Take a card away? So that actually was a mistake maybe right there. I think maybe I should have swung. I was just worried about giving him 1 more card. But why am I worried? He's got no cards on board, right? He can't really bounce my 10 costs very easily, if at all. So why not? I think I probably should have swung 5 with Shanks there. Yeah. All right, so Sengoku. And for a little bit of drawing here, he's going to grab a Jinbei. And then another 1 for the Kaya for a little bit more filtering. He's desperate, right? I mean, I've got a huge board. I mean, you look at this board and you're like, oh yeah, the Shanks is definitely winning it, right? I'm getting eyelash in my eye. What's that happening right now? You look at this board and you're like, how in the world did poor Doa lose this game? Well, you're about to find out. This eyelash in my eye just makes this even more painful. I promise it's an eyelash. I'm not just crying watching this game again. It was so, I should have won. No, it is what it is. So we're card gaming here, and when you're card gaming, sometimes crazy stuff happens. That's just how it is, right? And he's gonna swing 9. No, make it a 10. 10K swing into life. I can't block that. I gotta take it. Yep. And into a table manners kick course. There's no real trigger to be had here. And then look at this. 1, 2, 3. 1 cost lot blockers. I'm like, what? What? Because now I'm at 0 life. He has 3 blockers and 1 life left. If I don't draw into removal, there's just no way I can get out of this. I've thought about this turn a lot since then. So I'm searching. I'm like, give me a Ben Beckman. You know, give me something to remove, right? I can't search up the Rayleigh. I can't take the dragon. There's a dragon. Man, I wish I could take it with this, but he's not a red-haired pirate. I can't take the Newgate either because he's not a red-haired pirate. And I don't draw into any. I don't draw into a Ben Beckman, which I already saw 2, so it's unlikely that I'd see another one, right? But it was possible. So I take the Yasa. I'm like, well, there's counter, at least. But that was frustrating. If I would have drawn into removal, then I could have taken out a blocker, and then I would have had enough attacks to go through because he's got 4 cards in hand. Yeah, 4 cards in hand. I've got plenty of Dawn. So I'm like, well, all right. Otama is an attacker as well. I guess I have to try to go for 5 swings with Otama being one of them. I can go 2 7K swings, right? Yeah, I go 7 on Otama and 2 on me. Yep. So it's 7 7 12 12 12. But again, with 4 blockers, if he gets out of just one of the attacks, then that's it. But I have to go for my biggest numbers, right? I have to go for the biggest numbers I can. But with 4 cards in hand, like swinging for 7, what do you do? So like when I saw those 3 blockers, I was like, no, I can't believe it. And guess what? He told me after the game that the Kaya drew him 2 laws. And so like that Kaya actually just saved him there. He ripped 2 laws off the top there. So yeah, 7 with Kaya, that gets blocked, right? And then we're talking it out. It's like very clearly over. I don't even turn Shanks sideways. That's a Shanks attack right there. Costs a blocker. And then 12, there's another blocker. 12, there's another blocker. 12, there's the life, and I have no more attacks. And I don't have enough to protect myself against everything on Boa's swing. Yep, he goes in. That's it. And so I lose the game despite having that amazing board at the end. Like, I felt like I played it okay. I didn't play perfectly by any stretch, but I felt like I played okay getting myself to this point. But, you know, sometimes your opponent just drops 3 1-cost jump blockers in the end. You just can't get through. And props to him for ripping that off the top. Like, what a finish for that game. And he was happy, and it was a funny that we were both laughing about it because it is a ridiculous ending to that game. But, you know, I did the best I could. But sometimes Trafalgar Law says no. And so that's the end of that game. Hopefully it was entertaining. Hopefully you learned a little bit. Thanks for watching.